let's see here. If I was going to try to do something in OpenTunes that's kind of similar to the polyarc tool I built the other day, I think this is roughly how I would do it. I would use a polyline on a vector level. So I'd create a tunes vector level. And then I would go click, 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 close that shape. And then I'd hit the C key, which lets me go ahead and modify the shape in a second step. So this is actually pretty darn close to what you're getting with polyarc. Like here you could hit the D key and just move the nodes. Okay, so I actually made a copy of the drawing. So I just move the nodes, whip it into shape, and then if I hit Control, I can add a node like that. So here I would definitely have to do that. It doesn't really look quite right. What I want to do is make those nodes sharp. And I think OpenTunes has, yeah, you can hit the Alt key. It's one of those things you want to definitely experiment with. Yeah, I mean, all in all, it's pretty darn close. It's kind of like the polyarc tool, except you're what do I want to say? You are creating all of your nodes and then doing the curvature editing in a separate step. But at the end of the day, it's probably about the same amount of work, actually. Very, very similar. Okay, so now I just made a copy drawing. One thing I'm wondering here is, I wonder if OpenTunes lets me draw a lasso around a bunch of nodes and move them all as a group. I have quite literally no idea if you can do that or not. But yeah, basically the polyline tool with the C key, you know, to go ahead and edit those curves. It's pretty close. It's pretty close. So it looks like if you hit Alt, okay, it looks like if you hit Alt, it makes the curve. Let me see if I'm right about this. I'm not, okay, so put it this way, I'm not completely clear on what is happening and why yet. Like here, I can grab these two nodes, oops, so I can lasso them, and then if I click on the node itself, yes, you can move them as a group, so that's good. So these could all be grabbed and just moved as a, yeah, I gotta say if you do it with a vector layer, the polyline tool is definitely quite a good tool, probably just as good as my polyarc concept. The only advantage polyarc gives you is if you are on a regular tunes raster level, it sort of feels more final, so you're like drawing instead of editing. I think of drawing and editing as sort of two different brain functions, you might say. So, but this is actually quite a nice tool. Alright, so here we're going to go ahead and just delete those nodes, and probably could actually delete both of those as well. Yeah, and then you just grab this and edit the curve. So these are Bezier curves. I wonder about, yeah, it seems to me, hold on, let's hit undo. So if I drag this, let's see what happens if I drag it with the shift key. Okay, if I drag it with the shift key, drag the node, I should say. Okay, it keeps the node straight. If I drag it with control, doesn't make any difference. Alt is what I was looking for. Alt lets you grab just one node. Although that's not really what it's doing, is it? I'm grabbing it here, and then this node or this handle is still, even though I'm pressing Alt, that handle is. So what if I hit? What if I start moving and then hit Alt? Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. I'm hitting Alt then Shift and trying different things. But it does look like it lets you move that node independently. Now I'm not hitting Alt, but it still lets you move it independently. So I'm not really getting what Alt is making happen that's different, actually. I wonder. I'll have to look in the manual and see what the control point editor is supposed to be doing. But I have to say, basically, this is not a horrible way to ink. It is not a horrible way to ink. Okay, so again, I'm hitting. Yeah, I know what Alt does. Alt takes these two nodes and makes it straight. I see. Okay. So right now they're independent. What I do wonder for sure is how do you switch it back? So like this, if I want to make this two independent nodes again, maybe if I hit Alt again, yes, there you go. Hey, sweetness. That was just a stupid lucky guess. Okay, so these guys can be deleted. Oh, I'm gonna say, I think I've been meaning to give the polyline another look. You know, there's a few other inherent advantages. One is that the vector levels have an infinite canvas, so that's kind of cool. And I think if you're using the polyline tool, you're basically going to be dealing mostly with closed shapes. So that means you're not going to be struggling with fill operations that don't work. At least not too much. I'm sure it'll happen, but so I'm going to hit Alt. If I hit Alt, let's see. If I drag this around, they stay put. If I hit Alt, they seem to still stay put. What it looks like it did was, well, no. So it appears that Alt really only makes sense if you're grabbing the handles, not the initial node. So now I'm going to click it again, and yeah. So Alt just lets you toggle between having it be a continuous curvature through the node. So you've got handles, and then you click Alt, and it goes straight. So it's going to go like this. If you click Alt again, now they're independent again. So okay, you know, that's good. It gives you the option. So yeah, based on what I've been doing, I think maybe I'll be using this a little more often. Now, is this quicker than, say, just drawing it, you know, on a regular Toons raster level? Yeah, it probably isn't. It's sort of this tug of war between wanting to have really crisp precision which you have here, and editability after the fact, which you have here, versus just, you know, like I'm a cartoonist and I just want to draw, right? So now I just want to be doodling. I'm expressing what the mentality is. Neither one's wrong. Neither one is wrong. They're just different. Different approaches. Zoink. Okay, so I'm going to actually hit Alt to... This is, by the way, again, this is the C key. Yeah, I hit Alt deliberately to cause those two handles to align. Boom. Boom. Yeah. Not loving that curvature. That's where you have to grab the Bezier handle to really make it do what you want it to do. So, yeah, to be honest, I'm not quite sure how I feel about inking this way. I think it's probably a fine methodology. I guess for some people, another advantage might be that you can you could actually use keyframe interpolation in the level strip to generate more in-betweens. Well, that's not true, actually. Forget that. That won't work. The reason it won't work is because I am actually between frames here. I am inserting and deleting nodes, and if you do that, that breaks the automatic interpolation. Requires that the subsequent drawings have, you know, literally the exact same number of nodes. Otherwise, it doesn't know how to plot a path between, you know, because all it's doing is plotting from the position of the node before the move to the position of the node after the move. So if the node didn't exist before, how do you interpolate, you know, movement? If you don't know what I'm talking about right now, don't worry about it. It's not that important. It's not that important because I'm talking about something that wouldn't actually work anyway. So wait a second. Oh, curses. You stinker. Alright, I'm going to hit a D key. I have to go back and re-edit this one because I didn't realize I forgot to hit D, so I was not actually I was changing this drawing as opposed to working on a new one. So, boop. So yeah, I guess the great thing about the polyline tool would be precision. I mean, Bezier curves have been used in manufacturing design for decades, and I guess there's probably some good reasons for that. So we'll see how... Oh golly, I just did the same frigging thing again. D key. Well, this is why oftentimes when I'm doing this kind of stuff, there's something about this particular frame that is apparently cursed, and, you know, it doesn't want to be drawn. Is that possible? I don't know, you'd have to ask a scientist that's studying quantum mechanics if, in fact, the drawing can think. Does it have self-awareness? One can only wonder. I tend to think not. Okay, that was probably the doofiest thing I've said today. Okay, this. Okay, so this is one of the inherent problems with curve editing. It just happened twice in a row, right there. You're seeing it in real time. Is that it is really easy to select the handle when you meant to select the node. Okay, so I'm calling this the node, and I'm calling this the handle, just to be clear. But that's kind of an OpenTunes thing. It's across the board. OpenTunes seems to be fairly persnickety about clicking and dragging. It generally wants you to take 2 steps. Click to select something, then drag it. Now, frankly, the C key that I'm using here to edit the curves is kind of the exception to that rule, because you can do what I just did right there. You can just grab the curve and drag it. And it works pretty well most of the time. So there are probably those of you out there who are looking at this going, Dave, really? This is your walk cycle, pal? Because, you know, there might be room for improvement. You think? Okay, so this is why I don't like Bezier curves so much. Okay, this is actually a really good example of how the arc tool is just much nicer in my opinion. You would never get this situation with the arc tool because you've got, well, first of all, each curve stands on its own. Every curve between 2 nodes has 1 control handle. With Bezier curves, there are 2. Okay, so a quadratic curve sounds simpler. I mean, I'm sorry. Duh. Sounds more complicated. There we go. So if you just simply drag on a node, it actually turns it into a sharp corner, which is definitely kind of cool. So right here, I like the idea of being able to drag off of the curve, drag away from the curve, and have it gradually adjust. That's definitely my preference. So for that reason, that's basically why I'm not a mega fan of Bezier curves. They're definitely useful, but they're just not my favorite kind of curve to edit with. If I am... Yeah, see, right there's a great example. Well, yeah, kind of. I guess that's not the greatest example ever. But it would be a challenge to create the perfect curve editing tool. You know, what I'm thinking is, okay, well, first of all, here's the thing. With a Bezier curve, let me stop. With a quadratic curve, this would not be possible. You couldn't have 2 nodes that actually curve and make an S shape. Okay, so with the Bezier, like right here, it's really easy to miss grabbing the handle. So that's an interface issue in OpenTunes. This I like. I think when I modify my polyarc tool, I'm going to, in fact, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and show what I have in mind here while I'm here. I'm just guessing that maybe there's people that that would have watched the video I posted yesterday. So this is what I would do in the polyarc tool. Okay, I would go, I'm going to make this arc, and what I'm thinking would make this cool is that right now, under the hood, the software would have now made, you could actually access it in a list, but what just happened was you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 curves. Okay, you got 6 curves, and frankly, they're grouped. So you've got one group of 6 curves. All right, now you're back to work here, and now you're gonna There you've got a group of 2 curves, etc., etc. Okay, so what I'm saying is this would not be hard to implement in code. Okay, so now what you'd have is you'd have curve groups, and the way you'd have to do it is well, first of all, you wouldn't want to clutter up your interface with a big long list of all these nodes. So it would be something that's optional. It's like if you really want to get back to this, you could. Now what's interesting is that in bitmap graphics, and frankly the HTML canvas is this way, is that once you commit to those curves like I did here, you're stuck with them. Okay, now once I actually draw them onto the canvas, there are no curves here. These are just pixels. These are pixels that are either black or white. Okay. However, if I maintain a list of each of these curves and perhaps the groupings of them as well, the way I just said, then what would happen is, if I really needed to, I could select all these. I could select certain curves, and I could turn them off. Now, the way this would have to be implemented would be a little clunky, because what would have to happen is, if I said, okay, I want to just take this curve and redo it, I could turn that curve off. What would have to happen is when I turn it off, essentially all the other curves would have to go and play like a playlist and redraw the page, leaving that curve undrawn. Knowing what I know about the HTML canvas, that would probably happen really fast. Now, would it happen instantly? No, but this is where you got to think pragmatically about it. Number one, if you're using a tool like this, how often would you need to go back and re-edit? Okay, we're going to say that would be fairly rare. It would happen, but it would be fairly rare. Therefore, you don't want to make your programming design decision as if this was something you were going to be doing constantly, and you say, wow, this has to be really performant. If I'm going to delete this curve, then I want to click and just have this curve delete, and or have the ability to go, click another little icon or whatever, and now I can actually redraw the curve. Let's say so. In other words, what we're getting at is here is that we have a bitmap drawing that we want to be able to edit later as if it was a vector drawing. I'm telling you that that's not that hard to do, as long as you maintain a list of all the curves that you created, which is a dottle. I mean, that's going to be simple to do. That's just you create an array in memory, and then you save the parameters, and the parameters of each curve is xy, xy, xy. That's it. You just save a list of tuples, and that's brain dead, really. So now, if I hit the play button, this whole scene, if this was all inked, my suspicion is that this could all be redrawn from a list of tuples in certainly less than 1 second on a modest powered computer. Okay. And again, we're talking about an operation that does not have to be performant, because the way you want to think of it is, in the rare situation where I realize I definitely have to go back and change or tweak something, that's, if I've been working for a half an hour, I might have to do that once or twice. Well, okay. If I only have to do it once or twice, if I have to push a button and it takes 1 whole second to redraw the screen, what do I care? And you could redraw the screen and have the one that you're interested in be a different color or something like that, so that you so that it's very simple and easy to edit. Another thing you could do is, this is getting into nuance for sure, but you could say, well, redraw this, but leave this curve undone, but have it be a red straight line, so that after this operation completes, it's basically got 2 endpoints that are already in place, ready to just drag to reset the curvature. Or even go back 1 step and say, the first step is there, so after it redraws, this is what you get. Okay, now it's just now you've got your starting line. You know, another thing I thought of that would be interesting is, since we know where all these dots are, it wouldn't actually be that tough to implement some sort of I mean, it would start to get memory intensive, I will admit. It probably wouldn't be CPU intensive, but it probably would start to chew up a lot of memory if you retained you take all these coordinates which are retained, and you say, okay, now I want to have either a snapping option or this editing function I was talking about. The way it would work is that each of these dots would now have an HTML div associated with it. Okay, why would you do that? Because then it'd be pretty simple to implement a mouse over function, so that if you happen to put your mouse over this little dot right here, it would light up. Let's say it'd light up yellow. Okay? And if you click it, so what you do is you create an object that's it's what you would call a it would be created with a factory function. I don't want to get into too technical knowledge. You're using anonymous functions so that you can have 100 of them that are all referencing the same code, but yet internally they're all treated as unique. So you could have, you know, hundreds and hundreds of these little nodes, and they all behave the same way because it's all one piece of code. But yet they're all, the instances of them are all unique. So that would give you the ability to click on one of these things and have that map directly to the original curve that you drew. That's even more interesting, for the simple reason that that would probably not require drawing the whole scene again. Have to think about that one. Depends on how you do it, but there's probably a simple way to erase that I'd have to think about. But anyway, yeah, so now, you know what, as long as I'm here, I'll say this too. Jim, what is it, Jim P Animation? I gotta remember Jim P Animation made a comment about the Blender 2.8 grease pencil. Okay, this is basically my complaint about it is, let's go File, New, 2D Animation. Okay, so basically it's this tool. It's this tool we're talking about. This is just my opinion. You guys can disagree if you want. I don't care. This is just what I think. If I click here, okay, that was bizarre in and of itself. But let's say I click. Okay, for some reason, it's not, okay. So you have to actually drag. Okay, so what you do is the way my tool works. This is actually quite interesting. The way my tool works is, to me, is more intuitive, because it's like I know what my starting point is, I know what my end point is, and then I just intuitively and interactively create the curvature. Okay, and then I'm on to the next one. The way this works, you have to drag, and now you have a curve that the odds of that curve being the curve you want is basically zero. It's never, ever, ever going to happen. So you say, well, that's okay. I mean, with your tool, the straight line that you drew isn't what you want. But the problem I have with it is, now when I let go, I have to click and adjust it. It's like all the capabilities there. If I was going to advise Antonio, I'd say just redo the code. It'll probably take you an hour. So that, okay, and I have to hit escape to get back out of it. Okay, so redo the code so that it starts with this. This is actually done correctly. I think if you hit E, it continues. Yeah, this tool is way better. And then just add an intermediate step. I laugh because to me it's so obvious and simple, you know. Now just add an intermediate step that calculates a quadratic curve based on the third point, you know, and now you have the polyarc. Right? So, but to me, drawing this out and having it draw this curve, I know I'm being a whiner. Okay, I'm being a complete whiner, because this is actually a pretty cool tool. Admittedly, it really is. But every time I hit the E key and I get this bloop curve, I go, it's just like, it just doesn't. Why would you want that? Why would you ever want that curve to be there? I don't get that. It's like, okay, whatever. But, having said that, I am being a whiner because, frankly, as this is probably just as good as what I did. Okay, it is a little unfortunate if you sort of make a mistake and commit to this curve. You can't really. I guess the advantage. Okay, so here's the advantage of Antonio's tool, and this is what does make it better than what I sort of had in mind, is that at any time, at least until you commit to this curve, you can go back and drag these nodes around. So that's definitely cool. It's completely editable. So I would say the change would be, first of all, without a doubt, that should not be a curve. That should be a straight line. And after you click the straight line, I could see where maybe someone would say, well, what if you really actually wanted a straight line for that node? So just have the blue line appear on the line. In other words, have it after you draw your line, this is what you get basically. That's what you see. Okay. So you draw that and then drag the curvature and hit the E key and onto the next one. Okay, so the way he did it is not the end of the world. It's pretty good, and frankly, this tool alone, I will even say, this tool does make a nice addition to the toolkit if you want to use Blender 2.8 Grease Pencil, basically just for inking. You could use it just for inking. Now, in regard to editability, I guess to me I'm thinking that if it's going to be editable, and that's kind of one of the selling points, then it would be nice if I could also grab this node. But it appears that's not the case. Once you go to the next node, you're committed to it. So then you hit the Enter key, and I believe I would probably hit Tab to get into edit mode. Let's see what we have here. This actually might be interesting. Yeah. So once you've committed to it, you can still edit the curvature in a sense because you can use the obviously the proportional editing tool. So it is pretty powerful. I'm gonna give Antonio the kudos for this one. I think it is a well implemented tool. I just very much don't prefer the whole thing of it starting with a curve. I just that put me off the tool right at the start, because it's like whenever I see something in software where I go, why the hell would you ever want that? It makes me just get a little jaded out of the gate. So I may have jumped the gun a bit, but so yeah, it's definitely pretty cool. Boom. So that's that. I still like mine better, but obviously there's a lot of work to do. And meanwhile, aren't we supposed to be inking? I think we are. So, boom, boom, boom. D key. Well, the other thing is that the poly arc sort of assumes that you're wanting to work in a bit of a more old school fashion, where you're basically, you're dealing with bitmap art and you're planning to draw a line and commit to it, and that's that. And if you don't like it, you have to go back and redraw the darn thing, So, I don't know. It might not be as big of a win as I thought it would be, but it was definitely a fun challenge to create the code. Okay, so this is annoying me. I keep thinking I'm grabbing this, and for some reason it wasn't grabbing it. Okay, we want to hit the control key. I mean, you could spend a lot of time tweaking the details, the nuance of these sorts of tools to make them work a little more in a manner that's intuitive for you. You know, everybody's got their own way of working and everybody's got their own natural preferences. So obviously we have a major, why, it's an unmitigated disaster right there. It's just interesting because programming is interesting, you know. Programming is one of the more fun things you can do. I'd recommend any kid to learn basic programming. And frankly, if you're going to learn programming nowadays, probably JavaScript is the language to learn. Just because it's pervasive, you know. Every browser with no other software installed or required, every browser and a text editor working together has a complete development environment, which is amazing. You know, we're talking about, I showed some other little toy programs that I've done in the progress of sort of arriving at this sort of thing I was working on. You go, geez, you know, what's required here? 1 page of code, and it all runs in the browser. It's very performant. I mean, come on, there's lots of games. As Amar said in his comment, there's lots of games that have been created with the HTML canvas. There we go. Not bad. To build OpenTunes, I had to install Microsoft Visual Studio, which was multiple tens of gigabytes. Then I had to install Qt, which was also big. There were a few other dependencies I had to install. To be safe, because I really didn't want to like corrupt my system with installing all kinds of stuff that, you know, stuff that demands it be installed on the C drive, which pretty much there are ways around it, admittedly. So if you know about this sort of thing and feel inclined to correct me, you know, save your breath. I know that I'm making broad statements here, but basically Qt is somewhat persnickety about where it gets installed. Okay. So now I've got to install stuff on my C drive, and do you think it's axiomatic that whatever drive I pick to install all this stuff on, and we're talking about, I think it was in the neighborhood of 60 gigabytes of tools and libraries, you know, all the dependencies that make it possible to build this program. And, you know, it took all day. Now, to be fair, I admit, I did the entire installation in a virtual drive, Windows 8 appliance. So essentially I had Windows 8 running inside of Windows 8, because I figured I would rather clog up the virtual environment with all these installations, because then when it doesn't work, I haven't clogged up my real system. And that was probably a good choice, but admittedly that makes the compilation process quite a bit, well, I don't know, I shouldn't say quite a bit slower. I haven't built it on the live machine, so I don't know, but it probably made it a little slower. But probably not much, actually, because I use VirtualBox for, you know, I run an XP VirtualBox on my four core machine in the studio, and it performs fine. The only problem you really have with VirtualBox is if you need to connect stuff in the virtual machine to real hardware that's plugged into the host machine, you got to get things connected up correctly. So it can be a little challenging, okay? But the point for me was, you know, the initial compilation step took quite a while, only to have linking problems, and it just was not, it wasn't obvious what the problems were. You know, it was a clunker. Okay, so now what are we gonna do here? I think I'm gonna just, let's see. I think I'm just gonna go like this. Now let's turn on the smoothing. So the smoothing tool kind of gives you some of the benefits that you get with a curve tool. Actually, I don't think I like that. I think I'm going to go ahead and put this on the vector layer. Well, the thing is that if we use, let's use the arc tool for this. The nice thing about it is the snapping. So if I click here, it's going to connect the lines. No matter what. Now the problem I have is I've got the snapping set too high. I guess we'll let that one go. So that's not too bad. So the snapping makes the tool more viable, without a doubt. Okay. I guess I have to finish it up and then hit undo. Now we'll see how well this stuff fills when it's all said and done. I'm not going to count my chickens before they hatch, as they say. I like this though. The main problem with the arc tool in the regular Tunes raster levels is it doesn't seem to want to play nicely with my tablet. So the tablet pressure seems to, I don't know if the vector one works. That doesn't look like it's gonna. Now, you see what it does? It goes, when you're dragging, now this one's gonna work, it looks like. Click, click. Yeah, it's kind of hit and miss. Okay, hold on a second. Maybe I just learned something. Maybe the problem is if I drag, oh, no, that doesn't seem to be making any difference. So the arc tool with the my stylus tablet seems to be pretty good with vector layers. Okay, right there, see? It's almost like the tablet driver is actually sending 2 clicks instead of 1. See? Isn't that silly? Well, that's okay, because what I'm about to do here is certainly a legitimate way to work. So it won't let me, I don't know if you probably can't see what's happening there, but it's like it won't let go. You can't hit escape, which I think is completely stupid. You can't hit escape to cancel out of this tool. Anyway, so I'm going to go click, click. That's pretty good. And I think here we'll cheat it a little bit. And then we want to have a little thingy dingy across there. So yeah, probably if I was going to do this with my stylus, I would go, okay, actually I would go line, 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 line. And I say this is not a bad way to work. Probably for a lot of people this would be a great choice. Especially if you're not, like, if you don't consider yourself an artist. Just draw straight lines and then go in, hit the C key, and introduce a little curvature. Now the problem you're going to have here, I think, is it's going to be, we'll see when it comes time to ink it, but the problem with doing it that way is you're probably breaking the closure of some of these shapes. Whereas with the polyline tool, you're dealing with closed shapes generally out of the gate, you know, unless you're not. Okay, I'm just going to go ahead and these lines, it doesn't matter because these are just here for effect. So I do like the fact that it's one of the rare places in OpenTunes where you can click and immediately drag. Well, there, I say that, and then the last one didn't actually work. But boom, boom. C key. Bring this down here. Now we need to go Control, Control. Let's zoom way in. Yeah, so we do 2. And then I suppose the line tool would be a good, yeah, that looks pretty good. It's not, it actually is not really correct. Okay, so I'm going to modify that. I'm going to hit the C key, and actually here's the problem. And this is where I don't particularly love Bezier curves. What if I, yeah, okay, so I hit the Alt key and drag, and it makes it a sharp node, which is great. That's super cool. Very intuitive. You know, it's always fun when the software just kind of sort of does what you expected it to do. That doesn't always happen. Oh. Hey, I'm hitting Alt instead of Control. Silly me. Looks like we've got a rogue node there. Whoops. Okay, that was weird. I don't even know what just happened. Let's okay, so let's see. See, that doesn't want to get rid of the, it's just strange. I mean, I'm hitting the Alt key, and it seems to me what I've observed is in other cases it does what it does right there, where it's like it locks the nodes down and turns it into a sharp corner, you know, until it doesn't. Until it doesn't. So this is actually such a great example of why I'm not a big fan of Bezier curves. Okay, what I'm looking for is there anywhere in this equation where I just happen to get the result I'm looking for? And there isn't. There is no scenario here where I'm going to get what I'm looking for. I have to go in, tweak the handles. And so, yeah, for me, generally speaking, if I was designing the contours of the latest, you know, Tesla, well, okay, I might want to use Bezier curves. Yeah, I should call them bizarre. To do my modeling. You know, they definitely have their place. But as you can sort of see from the way I'm fighting with it, like that situation right there, you gotta have the ability to see. And this is weird because I'm hitting Alt and I'm dragging and it doesn't work, and then it does work. I don't know what to think about that. And actually, to tell you the truth, folks, this comes back to the question of why sometimes is it better to write your own code. I know what's going on with my code. If things are behaving strangely, generally, I can, if I don't know why, I can certainly figure it out in a hurry. With other people's code, you see these really weird behaviors and it makes you want to claw out your own eyeballs because there's nothing you can do about it. And you just go, what was he thinking? Well, actually, the thing that normally occurs to me is this. I think to myself, there is no way that whoever designed this software actually used it. And when I see that, it frosts me. I hate to admit it, but it does. It makes me mad because to me it's like so careless. Now the good thing about this is where the polyline tool is a good option, because if you click and drag, you get curvature with the polyline tool. So in that sense, it's kind of nice because you can introduce curvature right at the drawing stage, and that's essentially what I'm doing. And so that's probably the fastest way to get the result you're looking for with this particular tool. So, and then if you have to adjust afterwards, you can. So I would recommend anybody who's going to be doing a lot of inking, I guess I would probably recommend, if you're going to use vectors, definitely get familiar with the polyline tool, because it is a really nice, it's a mouse-centric tool, let's put it that way. What do I mean by mouse-centric? In other words, there are lots of people who probably don't consider themselves amazing artists, and so they like to use a tool that gives them the ability to kind of, your drawing process is really less like cartooning, and it's more like what you do in Blender when you're creating a 3D model. It's more of an editing sort of function, and that's basically what I'm doing today. Frankly, this probably would have been a lot faster to just go through and draw it, But you do have the advantage of some really crisp lines with the vector tools. That's for sure. Let's go polyline here. Click. Curve. Click. Click. Curve. Click. So the snapping's wonderful, I have to say. The snapping's really great. Is it perfect? Nah, it's not perfect, but it's pretty darn good. So it makes me think in my own software, I am thinking about some sort of snapping capability would be definitely interesting. Okay, so now I'm going to turn on the brush and just draw. And let's see how that goes. So we've got the nice snapping. A little bit of a bump down there, and snap, snap, snap. I think we're going to have a problem right there. Yeah, so right there is in fact the problem you get with the vector drawing tools in OpenTunes, is they are, it's one of those things you sort of have to do it to see what I'm talking about, but they're definitely a little hit and miss. Definitely a little hit and miss. Okay, back to the B. I'm going to turn the smoothing down to like 20. That speeds up the interactivity a bit. Okay, right there's, okay, I see what happened. That was a smoothing problem. So I can't really blame OpenTunes for that. Whoop. Let's see. Oh, snaps up back to high. Well, that would explain a lot. I haven't been using the snapping feature that much, so I can't speak intelligently about like how to dial it in so you get the best results. Because frankly, in my own work, mostly what I've been doing is just drawing. I just draw. I'm not using construction tools as much as I'm just... That didn't work, but fortunately I can hit the C key and edit that. That looks fine. Alright, brush tool. Is that going to give me a closed shape? I have no idea. Let's find out right now. Nope, it's not a closed shape. So this is what I'm going to say. Almost without a doubt, if you're going to do vector inking in OpenTunes, what I strongly recommend is get your drawing done, make sure you're happy with it, and then for paint, see, this is going to be, yeah, that's stupid looking. Really? Let's just, for fun, let's just try the tape tool. And the tape tool in rectangular mode I've found does work pretty well. Okay, this is what I'm going to recommend is File, Save All. Okay, let's turn the background off. Man, it's been an hour today already. Okay, what I would do is you can do this. Is it in the X sheet? I'm looking for the option to convert. Maybe you have to select the cells, not the header. I'll bet you that's what's going on. So I'm going to select the cells, and let's see which one it is here. It's probably level. And there's convert to vectors. There's supposed to be an option here for, there it is. I'm looking straight at it, sorry. Okay, and it is cell based. Okay, so I'm going to hit Z. I'm going to just get rid of this. So it does appear to be a cell based function, so you need to select all the cells that you want to do this with, and then vectors to tunes raster. Okay, and then I'm just going to turn the vector version off. The reason I did that is all of a sudden you're going to find that the fill tool is considerably more reliable, as you can just see right there. Filling operations on vector layers has always been hit and miss. It probably always will be in my lifetime. That's okay. Kudos to the developers for giving us the option to convert vectors to tunes raster. And the cool thing, I like the way they did it, where the vector layer is still preserved. It's still there. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and give myself two colors. There's supposed to be sort of a dark goldish color and then sort of a burgundy color. So what the heck, let's try frame range. I'm going to click here, I'm going to go down to here and click here, and okay, so let's look at what just happened. This is classic me. I can't believe I did this, but so it's very dumb. I created those new colors on the wrong level, so sorry about that. I will happily admit that when I'm moving fast and talking, I tend to make some dumb mistakes. So okay, not bad. Now we're not going to be able to get away with that with this area And I don't like the way this jumps around when I use frame range either, so I'm just going to skip frame range. And let's just jump between the drawings and knock it out. There is no way, I swear people, there's no way that this fill operation would be anywhere near as smooth as you can see right here if this was on the vector level. Now I could prove it by going through the vector level and trying to do these fill operations, but at this moment maybe you'll take my word for it. Okay. Okay, so now obviously in the middle we got a few lines we need to draw. But it's not too bad. I mean, I'm kind of happy with the way it's looking. So let's go back to our black, and now let's just go ahead and use the brush. And by the way, let's turn the smoothing down. Maybe 10, okay. This is kind of instinctive, I must say. You know, it's all just kind of, I feel, I don't like that last line. We want to have the sense that the fabric's being stretched, so we can't really, could maybe do that, but so I would have to say, all in all, I don't particularly love the lines that I did in the vector layer, or level. So what I would say is, if I had it to do over again, I would do all the outlines in the vectors, but then go ahead and the stuff that's easy to just sketch in, do with the on the raster level. So I think that's probably gonna look pretty good. Now technically this guy's clothing has a pattern on it, but I am not going to do that. For one thing, he's kind of walking in the dark anyway, so okay. So now what I want to do is let's go ahead and I'm not going to come back to this, so I'm going to just kill the vector level. This would be the sketch. So I believe I can lose that as this level is important because this level is controlling the animation on the shoe. So what I think I'm going to do here is go into these sub X sheets, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to trace this. I'm just going to trace the lines. So let's add a new style, and frankly we're going to need 1, 2, 3, 4 actually. Let's add a flesh tone, sort of a dirty leather color. You got the black for the shoes. Am I missing anything? I might have one color too many. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'll tell you what I'm going to do. Okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to work smart. I want to take these drawings and I want to make them deletable. Okay. Problem is you cannot delete palette entry number 1. So here's how we solve that. We take the fill tool, and what we're going to do is we're not going to fill areas, we're going to fill lines in rectangular mode. So now what I'm doing is, whoops, I'm selecting all this, and as you can see, that changed the color. Alright. Whoops. Okay. So now these lines are deletable, which is great. So we really want them to be kind of like something like that. Okay. Now one could argue, actually come to think of it, let's think about this for a minute. one could argue that by putting it on a different level, muting this level entirely, but then using this level's animation to drive the new level's animation? Let's give that a crack. Okay, so if we're going to do this, let's go to this level, hit the B key to create the level, obviously. And then what I want to do is just draw Mr. Big's foot. Now, I actually want to continue up to draw his leg, and then let's just cap that off because that's obviously going to be capped off. I kind of implied that there was going to be flesh tone, but actually the more I think about this, really this needs to be like the other ninja guys. So what I'm going to do actually is use the arc tool to connect this to this and then introduce a little bit of curvature, and there's going to be my foot. Okay, so let's stretch this down to here, and then what I'm going to do is, let's just look at this. Okay, so there's the foot moving back and forth, and we'll have to draw other versions of the foot. Okay, that's fine. But what we want to do is open a schematic, and we want to actually make column 2 a child of column 1. Okay, and then what we need to do is use the animate tool to just get this positioned properly, like so. Alright, and then let's just run it and see if it's doing what we expected, and it is. I don't know, I honestly wonder if having all these additional shapes was just kind of silly. So I'm going to go back here and hit Control C. We want our leather, and I guess we kind of want another leather color that's a little more tan. That's what I'm thinking. Yes, so Mr. Big, okay, we got to go to normal areas. Technically this should be, I guess I will do a flesh tone, what the heck. Boom. Okay, and it's going to be dark-ish. So what we want is leather. Okay, I think that will work. Right, so this should be turned off. So now we have the animation being driven by the okay. Not bad. So we're not seeing his foot bend, but I'm going to go in and I'm going to fix that with the plastic tool. Okay, now this is where it gets a little complicated. There's a few steps I need to take. Yeah. Okay. I hate to have to compensate in this way, but what I want to do is I want to take the animate tool here and just bring his foot back a little bit. I hate to do that, but yeah, it's not quite right. Okay, that's not bad. Alright, so now let's see if that got us a better result. Yeah, that looks good. Okay, so now what we need to do, and this obviously is going to have to be compensated for as well, but what I'm going to do, I don't know if this is going to work, but what I'm going to do is hit the S key. It's probably not going to work. Control C, and then I'm going to come up out of here. Okay, sorry, I didn't actually select what I thought I did. Control C. Let's rise up out of here. Let's go down into here. Let's create attunes raster level, hit the S key and hit Control V. Ah, it worked! I can't believe it worked. Oh my goodness. That's crazy. That's crazy, folks. Okay, so what we needed to do was compensate for this step right here. So, again, a schematic. We're going to do the same thing we did before. Because these two levels with the feet are actually clones of one another. Where the second one is just offset halfway, so that when one's going this way, you know, so they're going like this. It's a pretty simple solution. Okay, so I want to take and let's go back to all mode. So let's, whoopsie poo. Sorry. What we're trying to do here is compensate. So we set this here, we put it center here, we rotate it like that. Okay, now presumably we're going to have to make a slight compensation here. And then what we're doing is we're looking for the furthest extent of this step, which would be right there. And as I recall, what probably needs to happen is definitely not scaling. Okay, so slightly there, slightly there. I'm guessing that's probably going to be okay. Let's find out. Okay, folks, that would be a no. I'll tell you what we're going to do. I've got an idea. Let's turn this off. Yeah. Okay, let's just look at this. This one's okay. So let's just delete this. Delete that column entirely. And let's clone this. Let's clone the sub-X sheet. Okay. Now let's do the same thing we did before, which was go into it and offset it. So the way we're going to do that, probably, boy, this is going to be tricky because we have to copy all the keys as well. If I remember correctly, the way to do that, let me see. We're going to center on 73. Let me put a memo just to mark that. 73 is where we want to be. So what we want to do is we want to make a duplicate. Okay, I don't think cut and paste works. Let's see if it does. It does. Okay. Then we should be able to grab all of this. Alright. And what we want to do is we want to center the action on frame 73. So what we need to do is offset it by 55 to 73, which would be 18. 6, 12, 18. So that means we need to drag this whole thing up so that it starts at frame 37. Let's see if it works. Click. It did. Oh, goody. Alright, and look at that. Sometimes you just can't believe things worked. Okay, so now you see there's an obvious problem. There's an obvious problem. A pretty egregious problem, but fairly easy to compensate for. Okay, and the whole problem actually comes from the fact that let me go up to the top here. We'll deal with the we will deal with the up and down spacing afterwards. What appears to be the problem is the whole thing. I've got to figure out if it's a moment early or a moment late. Seems like that's where it wants to be. It looks to me like it's early. Okay, so if it's early, dyslexia moment here, folks. If it's early, I think I'm correct in saying that this whole thing needs to come down. Am I right? I don't know. Dyslexia moment. I'm telling you. I'm telling you. What does? Sorry, folks. Oh, I see what the problem is. Gotta turn my level back on. Duh. That. So the question is it even worse? Okay, hold on. Okay. So that comes up there. Yeah, like I said, when I say dyslexia moment, what I mean is I just don't. It's brutally difficult for me to visualize in my head what should this be happening a moment earlier or a moment later. It's for a lot of people, they would look at that and go, what the hell's wrong with you? Well, what's wrong with me is I'm dyslexic. I actually never realized how dyslexic I was until I started doing animation. But this is, yeah. It just seems like the full extents of the motion are a little exaggerated. So here's what I'm going to do. I'll tell you how we can solve this in a hurry. Let's explode the sub-X sheet. And let's explode the sub-X sheet so that now we can edit everything together. Okay, so why did we lose our offsets? So you might be screaming now if you're like me watching this, you'd be going, ah! Okay, step one is to turn this off. And as we can see, and actually I'm going to turn my background back on so I can really see how they fit together. Okay, so these columns are off. What we're working with is this guy. Okay. So now the question is whether applying an offset to the foot alone will get us close. Let's see what that does. I have kind of no idea. Yeah, that's definitely not the answer. Okay. So yeah, the whole thing seems to need an overall offset. What happens if we get rid of this completely? Okay. So it seems to me that what's going on here, this is really a bit of a conundrum, because we want to preserve this animation. That's the problem. That is the entire problem, is we don't want to throw away this animation and have to completely redo it. Right? But you know what? Maybe we should. Let's throw it away. Boom. We just threw it away. Boom. We just threw it away. Let's make some intelligent adjustments. What is our actual walk cycle range here? Okay, so our range, I don't know how these got tweaked, but let's just say, okay, that's what we're going to do, that's what we're going to do, that's fine. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to scale this guy up a little bit. Actually, what I'm going to do is set the center here where his hips would be, and let's just scale it up a little bit. Okay, so now we're stuck with that. Okay, and in fact, I'm going to even scale it up a little more, because what I really want to do is, yes, for the most part, get his feet down a little lower. So I need the skirt to come down, as it were. So Okay, there's the foot. So now the way we're going to do this, make it work, is we're going to put the center kind of here. Let's get this first step kind of sort of where it needs to be. Okay. And now my guess is that we can do this. Except not really. That's okay. Let's just deal with it. Okay, let's just see if that's working, if that's kind of sort of working. Okay, it appears to me that my initial keyframe is just gone completely. How that happened, I absolutely have no idea. Okay, so as far as I can tell, we're going to have to insert quite a few keys here. So normally if I'm dealing with something like that, what I do is I just keep splitting the difference. Split the difference. I'm going to change his center. So now that the center's changed, these keys are all wrong. But that's okay. I'd rather have this be more manageable. Damn. Let's see. Something like that. And we're going to have to change the shape of the toes, and it's drifting all over the place. And this is the part where you're screaming at the screen, going, Dave, what the heck are you doing, man? Look at that. That's horrible. That's ugly. That's stupid. Okay. I guess the problem is the center really just does need to be on his ankle, actually. And probably it would be better to get rid of the problem. There. Problem solved. We are going to keep the foot down where we can see it, only the foot and not the leg. Okay, so there's step one and there's step two. Okay, fine. So now it's probably going to make a linear transition, which is not horrible actually. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a couple extra tweaks here that I think are going to make it a little more realistic. I wonder about this. Yeah, that's not going to work. You would have to really make some tweaks to the what do you want to call it? I don't want to call it a skirt. Okay. So he actually does lift it up. Okay, that's not too bad, but it does seem like because of the keyframe interpolation that everything is a little out of sync. So it seems like this is lagging behind. So what I'm going to do is just move this keyframe up one step and see if that... No. It's worse. See, again, dyslexia moment. It apparently needs to come later, not earlier. Diggity dog. Well, this is where the step value on your keyframe interpolation turns out to be a bit of a hassle, I have to say. This would be better and easier if it was on ones. See how it's always, because the interpolation, everything's off by a frame, and how much experimentation would I have to do to figure out if I'm one frame earlier, one frame late? It would take way too. It would be hard to explain why this problem is happening. It's got to do with the way that OpenTunes does keyframe interpolation under the hood. Sometimes what you just saw right there is helpful, which is just remove keys. Keep it simpler. Okay, let's turn this foot on. We'll turn this one off for a moment. Okay, so this one's there, but you can't see it. So there it is. And because it referenced the same drawing, it's actually... okay, why did that just happen? You silly, silly, silly goose. Alright, so let's turn this one back on. And right here, we're going to go like that. Like it. Here we're going to go like that. I'm kind of joking. When I lived in this small town called Decatur, people never pronounced their THs. They wouldn't say like that, they'd say like that. It always seemed a little strange to me. But, what do I know? Okay, so right here, this should come up and be sweeping across. Okay, right there seems to be a little winky. Yes, because this guy actually should also be okay, or not. How the heck did I grab a certain level and then it turned out I wasn't grabbing that level? Ah! I'm going to actually make that on twos. Yes. Okay, right there we have a problem, which would suggest this needs to be coming forward more. Let's let this play and let's play it at full speed and see what it does. So it's actually not too bad. It looks like there's one spot right there. Probably what we probably need to do is bring this guy back a little bit. Yeah, right there. This would flatten out and then be like that. We've got to let the... Well, I will say that this whole business of putting this stuff on twos is... in other words, in my animation settings, linear animation steps 2, meaning that it's only going to interpolate if there are changes more than 2 frames apart. The problem is what you find is if you're, and I've seen this several times recently, so that's why I'm going to bring it up, is that if you are mixing animation, tool animation, in other words what I'm doing right here with the animation tool, versus frame by frame drawings, just switching drawings, flip book animation. when you mix the two, this happens like all the time. They get out of they're not synchronized well. Okay. You know, it kind of suggests that probably having constant interpolation makes more sense, or just doing it on ones. Okay, I think we're okay now. Yeah, we are. Okay. There's something strange happening at the end. Well, it doesn't matter. It's only going to run through once. 1, 2. Yeah. Okay. What does this look like rendered? Not great. So if you're going to criticize it, what you're probably going to criticize is right here. The foot should not be. I mean, we really should have another foot shape. I'm kind of making the case. I'm sort of arguing that if you're really gonna, if this is gonna go by and all you're gonna literally see is one walk cycle like that, that's it. That's all you see. Boom. I don't think. Let's do that again. 1, 2. And then it's going to cut back to Akari. So do we really need this to be impeccable? I think not. Especially because everything about it is dark. Okay. Okay, that feels a little too green. Alright. Here, kind of a similar situation. Alright. Okay, so now the question is, what about the shadow? Are we going to be able to get away with throwing the old shadow back in? It would appear definitely not. So let's go ahead and kill that, kill that. By the way, we don't want these to render. That's the old run cycle. So now we need to have a shadow layer. So let's insert B key. Let's go with a bulky brush. And I literally have absolutely no idea if this is going to work. I just put in one drawing more than I needed. But you know what? I don't care. I don't care. And I would say that now that I'm seeing this, the earlier shadows were too low. You really do want to actually use this to shroud the intelligibility of all of this stuff. So I'm going to go like that. Next drawing. Like so. Just a little erase on the bottom there. Okay, I think I got it. Okay, so now we're going to go into the color, crank down the alpha on that. Okay, and then we're going to add a sort of a color correction layer. It's going to be the old airbrush, the big airbrush, and this is going to be over top of the entire shot. So this is why I was saying that the intelligibility of this overall is going to be fairly low-ish. I'll know it when it snaps in. It's probably about there. Let's give that a crack. See how it looks. Okay. Unfortunately, I don't like what I did here. Well, actually, yeah, I'm just going to have to redo it. I'm going to have to redo it. That's okay. What I'm kind of seeing here is that we want to let this tint or this shading mainly be about the top area of the screen. Okay, and then look at what just happened. Well, that's what happens when you inadvertently don't pay attention and create it on the wrong frame. Okay, that's not too bad. Although what I think I want to do is have it be less blue, because remember, when this gets brought into Blender, there's going to be a blue. There is going to be a blue cast to the whole shot. Okay, so now what I want to do is, in my effects schematic, which for some reason OpenTunes doesn't want to let me see. What's up with that? Let's try again. So as usual, when OpenTunes is acting stupid, fit to window. Okay. I don't need those. What I wanted to do was take column 6 and add a blur. I'm going to just see what the default looks like. I mean, you know, that's not bad. It's a little bit too smooth, though. And I'm going to actually insert a directional blur as well. That didn't seem to do much, did it? It also made it more dense, which I don't like, so I'm going to just leave that as a gentle blur. Alright, Control R. So what do we think about the vectors? The jury's out. My sense is that these outlines done with the Toons raster level actually look better. That's kind of my opinion at this point. So on balance, it seems to me that the vector-based inking was, with the polyline tool, was actually more time consuming than just drawing the stupid thing, you know? So I better open up Blender because I need to make sure I'm replacing the right clip. If I replace the wrong clip, I'm going to be in trouble. I'm going to be in trouble. I say, that wouldn't be good. We don't want to replace the wrong image, do we? Oh no, that would be most exceedingly ungood. Okay, it's this one right here. And that is shot number 50. Now, as an exercise, I have to say that I thought shot number 50 came out really good. It's just that it doesn't really make sense in the show. So I'm going to rename this to shot 50, rejected, run, cycle, replaced with walk, cycle. And just so I can keep it around. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to replace shot 50. Right. Here we go. .mp4. Okay, and that's rendering quite quickly. Now hopefully it won't come into Blender looking all silly. Let's find out. Boom, boom, boom. Okay, something like this. That definitely works better. I'm not convinced that I did the greatest job ever on this run or this walk cycle. Definitely. And plus, if we hear it now, we hear the footsteps. We're going to hear the footsteps coming. And obviously we've got a change in Kari's face here, but I wonder if putting in a transition from this to this would not be the worst idea ever. Now, one thing I see here, I wonder if we can tweak this. This is a big time kludge, but what I actually would like to do, let's see, duration. Let's go to image offset. No, offset isn't quite what we were looking for. Image crop. It seems to me that one of these options, yes, there we go. Okay, that's interesting. It lets you stretch it, but doesn't let you, it doesn't let you crunch it. So you can stretch it wider, but you can't stretch it narrower. That's too bad. What if we click both of these? Maybe. So, yeah. What I'm wanting to do is simply make her skinnier. Image crop. So yeah, that's a bummer. I'm really bummed. I can stretch her wide, but I can't squeeze it. Okay, well, maybe there's a modifier. Nope. Okay, that sucks. Well, the basic problem here is this is Akari. This is who she evolved into being. These drawings were done earlier, and she's just a little too wide in these 3 shots. So I can fix that. I can actually fix that pretty readily in Krita. There's only 2 drawings here, so I bring the 2 drawings into Krita, stretch them small, and then either fill in the extents of the background that will get cropped off, or just move the whole shot in to be a little tighter close-up. So, well, as long as we're here, and I've been live streaming for almost 2 hours, why don't we just do it? Let's fix this, like, right now. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, and by the way, I'm going to put my sunglasses on because I've been looking at the screen for quite a while, and I just don't want to be making my eyes all bloodshot and stuff. So, media. So I'm pulling up the Fast Stone image viewer. What I probably should do here is just transition like so. Okay, now what I have to remember is to switch back to the other screen. So I'm looking for anime, render, and I'm just looking for the 2 static drawings of Akari right here. That's what we want. Excellent. So now I'm going to hit the E key, which causes the drawings to be opened up automatically in Krita. And now over here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to skim back to here and use that as a reference for how much to skinify Akari. And what I'm thinking is probably something like that. Okay. Boy, I need a marker because remember I'm going to have to do the same thing to the other drawing too. I know what I can do. Let's just take this drawing and drag it in as a layer. And then let's take this one and do the same thing. Sweet! Okay. Now what I'm going to do is, this is going to be simplicity itself. I'm going to hit the rectangle select key, just grab from here over, then hit the animate tool, and stretch it. Here, let's do the same thing, the same basic thing. Okay, so now 51.0060 and 51. Okay, so we want this one to be. Let's turn this off and file, save. Okay, we did not get any complaints from Krita as far as saving the file goes, so that means that must have worked. So now I'm going to go save as, and this one's going to be 0061. Boom. Okay, so now here in Blender, yeah, it's a little confused. So let's reload. Just reload the edit and see if that did the trick. Yeah, I mean, there's a little bit of a resizing thing going on there that seems a little funky, but I can probably fix that right here in Blender. So she goes like this. Yeah, that definitely looks better. I just don't like the way this is. There's like a 1 pixel change here. So let's take this one and let's, this is ridiculous, ridiculous nuance. That did it. So this is an image offset of 1 pixel. Right there. Image offset 1 pixel. Can you believe that? That solved it. Okay, I better save this. Okay, so now Akari is sufficiently skinny. And we may decide at some point to go back in and give her a mouth. Why not? Here we are in Krita. Why don't we give her a mouth, like right now? Alright, and let's do it on a separate layer so it's baked into both layers. Hello? What the heck? Why is my brush not working? Okay. Why are no brushes working? Okay, so we have a fairly complicated situation here. And it appears that for no explicable reason, Krita has decided, well, by the way, if you're going to draw, we're just going to do nothing. There's no drawing happened today. No, not going to let you. Okay. So now what I have to do, unfortunately, is save this as a Krita document so that I can open it back up. And that's okay, that's okay. I'm going to kill Krita. I can't even believe I'm having to do this. It's so ridiculous. Unfrigging believable what I'll have to put up with. There it is. Let's see. Oh, I know what the problem was all along. Selection. So that's my bad. Which happens most of the time if you guys haven't noticed. Usually when something completely bizarre happens, about half the time it isn't the software. It's Dave being stupid. But what is very strange here is the way Krita introduced this 1 pixel error. I do not believe that there's anything I did that introduced that error. Now I'm going to leave it there for the simple reason that we're already compensating for it in the in Blender. So I'm not only going to give her a mouth, but I'm also going to give her eyebrows. This is something I've kind of been needing to do. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and make the mouth a little darker here for the specific reason of taking everything and making it somewhat transparent. Okay. Alright, so this would be... Hello, escape. You know what? While we're here... Gosh. No, I don't want to do that. Never mind. Okay. So, is this... This is 61. File, save as, and we're back to pings, aren't we? Let's go to pings, and we're saving this as 51-61. And we're going to kill this, and save this as 51.60. Okay. Now, should be able to reload Blender. Yeah, look at that. So now we're going from this, which arguably lacks a nose, but I have to say I'm much happier with the overall look of the show. Yeah, it's looking good. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground today. Again, I am not going to claim that this walk cycle is like the most amazing thing ever, but it's pretty good. And now here's the good news, folks. Pretty much as of right now, let me just look at this. Yes, I think as of right here, we're finally getting into the stuff that was drawn and animated more recently, and so I think this is going to be a little tighter, a little more fun going forward. That's just my sense, but we'll see. I may live to eat those words, but I definitely think we're on the right track. It's looking good over here. So, I think I'll stop there. And what is it, 11:02? I've been live streaming for almost 2 hours, so that means I'm probably going to actually work on some code here for a while instead of animation for a bit. But I must say, these shots I think are like way better. I mean, obviously it helps to have eyebrows and a mouth, but they're definitely more consistent with. Yeah, see, this would be earlier Akari, and this would be later Akari. She's slightly skinnier. I don't think this needs to be modified, although it wouldn't hurt. Yeah. Interesting stuff. So anyway, I think with that, I will stop and say see you later. Goodbye. Until next time.